Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
Today's an important day because the debate is happening tonight.
I'm so excited to be in position to have a conversation directly with the people of Ontario.
I'm feeling good. It'll be a historic night.
Thanks for joining us. We will get to the provincial election debate in a moment, but first, we'll begin with a spotlight on criminal cannabis farms in our region. Migrant workers are often unknowingly getting caught up in these illegal operations. The grow ops are highly concentrated in Essex County, and it's organized crime groups that are profiting, turning that cash into something more dangerous. The CBC's Jason Vio has more.
OPP officers spend a lot of time in Essex County investigating illegal cannabis grow-ops. In Ontario, police say this is where they're found the most. And when police raid the greenhouse, they say most of the time the farm workers inside are completely oblivious to what's really going on.
They're drawn into what they believe is a legitimate business. Unfortunately, they have to work in sometimes really difficult, harsh conditions. But normally they don't have any idea what they're doing is criminal.
The deception starts when he says the workers are shown documents stating that cannabis is legal in Canada, and sometimes they do see a legitimate license, but they may be growing a lot more than they're allowed. In one case, police say someone had 40 different grow sites, and just recently the OPP raided an illegal pot grow-op and found $6 million worth of the drug. When farm workers are found, the OPP say they rarely get charged.
In most cases, they're super cooperative because they really legitimately have no idea what they're doing is wrong. So they're happy to tell the police who they work for and what exactly they've been doing and how long they've been doing it.
Some are farm workers from within Canada, but others are migrant workers who sometimes face immigration issues.
These workers are voiceless, abandoned, experiencing many barriers, and they're very big due to their precarious status and lack of representation. They are an easy target for these kind of unscrupulous employers and criminals.
The federal government says if they are not charged or convicted in Canada, they can still obtain work permits here. The CBSA also says if a migrant worker is found to be unknowingly involved with illegal cannabis, they will not automatically be sent home. No matter where they're from, though, the OPP says they're inadvertently helping organized crime groups.
These people only care about money. They only care about the easiest way to make the most amount of money possible. And obviously, that's with methamphetamine and cocaine, but in order to buy that in quantity, they need to have the money. So they grow cannabis to get the money, to buy the cocaine, to buy the methamphetamine, and then they traffic them in the communities that you and I live in. For that reason, it's concerning. Just the amount of money that it gives them access to, that makes it scary.
He says in every single organized crime case he's worked on, there's always an illegal cannabis component. That's just there to make them easy, quick cash. And he says the criminals see the penalties as almost risk-free compared to getting caught with cocaine or fentanyl. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
A big day in the election campaign in Ontario. The only televised leaders debate is about to get underway in Toronto. Lisa Shing is at the TVO headquarters where the debate will be taking place. Lisa, where do things stand so far heading into this debate?
Hey there, Katerina. Yeah, a lot of supporters here at TVO, but also some anti-Ford protesters, namely from the union representing PSWs, and they're chanting, trying to out-chant each other, essentially. The debate is going to get underway shortly, and essentially it's a big night in the election campaign because it's a chance for the public to get a better sense of the four leaders heading into the election. And if they haven't been paying attention right now, tonight would be the time to do that. Now, the PCs have a lead, and they have been, they've had that lead for the last couple of weeks already. Nothing has really changed. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the debate actually really makes a ripple in this landscape, if you will, going forward. A chance for the other leaders to try and get in some digs into PC leader Doug Ford.
Yeah, Lisa, let's talk a little bit more about the leaders. What are their goals for tonight?
Right, so with PC leader Doug Ford, the goal is to really stay the course, to maintain, play defense, and not to make too many waves, and he wants to preserve that lead that he has, right? And the best way to do that is not to make a mistake, not to make any headlines, really. As for NDP leader Andrea Horvath, she's going to be trying to paint herself as the person who has the most experience as the leader in waiting, if you will, and Stephen Del Duca, the Liberal leader, he isn't really well known, so he's going to be trying to get his name and his face out there tonight to give voters a chance to get to know him, to see exactly who he is, because if you remember last week at the Northern Leaders debate, he was pretty unflappable, talking policy and kind of holding his own, but not a lot of passion from him. So, you know, we'll see whether or not he can kind of bring a little more personality tonight into the debate. And as for Green Party leader Mike Schreiner, going to be interesting as well. This is his first debate. There will be 4 leaders for the first time, so he will really has nothing to lose. He won the 1 seat for the Green Party last election. It'll be considered a success if he picks up 1 or 2 more seats. And also a challenge for Mike Schreiner, though, is to also try to make the public see that he's not just a one-issue leader or one-issue party heading into this. So a lot of interesting dynamics going forward. We'll be watching closely, Katarina.
Thanks so much for this, Lisa. That is CBC's Lisa Shing reporting in Toronto. The top 4 political parties are getting most of the attention during this election campaign, but 21 other parties and 41 independents will also be on the ballots. Getting some attention are 2 conservative alternatives to the progressive Conservatives. Joanne Cianello has been looking into this and joins us now. Joanne, I understand you went out to a New Blue event last week, so what was that like?
You know, it was standing room only. More than 100 people showed up to this small conference room in a hotel in suburban Ottawa. They spent 90 very hot minutes listening to speeches from the leader and local candidates. You know, this is the first ever election for the New Blue Party. It was created just 16 months ago in the middle of the pandemic, and it seems to be getting some attention from people who feel alienated from the other parties, including Robert Woods. Here's what he had to say.
There is no fringe. These are regular people who hold regular jobs. Like me, I hold a regular job, you know, and I pay regular taxes, right? And I see them regularly being wasted, right? There's nothing fringe about this.
Who's behind the party, Joanne, and why did they start it?
You know, it was started by a husband and wife team, Belinda and Jim Carahalios. Now, Belinda was the Cambridge MPP who was removed from the PC caucus back in July of 2020 because she voted against a COVID-related emergency act that let the government extend orders for up to 2 years without consulting the legislature. So she and her husband Jim started their own party. Now, Jim is the actual party leader. He has run for the federal Conservative leadership race in the past, but he was tossed out. He's also a candidate in Kitchener-Conestoga. In fact, the party is fielding a full slate of candidates, 124. Now, so far, he told me they're happy with the support they're seeing at their events.
Every time we take a step, we gain momentum. There's no shortcuts for us, so this is all a grassroots effort. But every meeting we're having, we're pleasantly surprised, and as you could see, the room is always smaller than the turnout. So that's always a good thing in politics, and we don't take anything for granted. It's up to the voters and the people at the end of the day. All we do is put out our values and principles, and we're gaining support across Ontario.
Now, Katarina, probably not too surprising, those values and principles are a little bit to the right of the PCs. You know, they take down the wind turbines, for example, saying it would reduce hydro prices, remove the carbon tax imposed by the feds, reduce the HST to 10%. And like the Ontario Party, they oppose COVID mandates and vaccine passports, as well as discussions about gender identity and race in school, what the New Blues call woke activism. And they want parents to have more publicly funded choices about how to educate their kids.
Right, and it sounds like there are a lot of similarities to the Ontario Party. So what are they all about?
Now, this is the second election for the Ontario Party. It actually ran 5 candidates in 2018, got about 2,300 votes. Now it has more than 100 candidates. They're also boasting an incumbent, former PC MPP Rick Nichols, who was ousted last summer when he refused to get vaccinated. I'm sure you folks know all about him down in Windsor. You know, he's running again in Chatham-Kent-Leamington. Now, the leader of the Ontario Party is former Conservative MP Derek Sloan. He was booted out of the federal Conservative caucus last year because he accepted a donation from a known white supremacist. He's running in Hastings, Lennox, and Addington, where he used to be the MP. Now, another noteworthy candidate for the Ontario Party is in Peterborough, Horvath. That's Tom Mazzola. He acted as a spokesperson for the truckers in the convoy protests that occupied downtown Ottawa. Now, I asked Sloan if the people involved in those protests are attracted to the Ontario Party. Here's what he had to say.
So there's a few people that were prominent in the convoy that are running for our party. Certainly, I think a lot of people that come to our events are favorable towards the convoy. I wouldn't say that everybody was involved that's supporting us, but I think I think most people are favorable to the plight of the truckers that come to our meetings and feel that it was handled inappropriately.
Sloan told me that the truck protests also got the attention of former Donald Trump advisor Roger Stone, a controversial figure in his own right, and now he's helping out the Ontario Party. The Ontario Party, I must say, does seem a bit more overtly religious than the New Blues. Its mandate recognizes, quote, the supremacy of God and the rule of law. The party would get rid of the bubble zone legislation around abortion clinics. And one unique platform plank is around controlling immigration to Ontario as a way to deal with housing issues in urban areas.
So bottom line then, how much of an impact do you expect any of these minor parties to have on the outcome of the election?
Well, to be honest, Katerina, almost none. I mean, supporters of all the minor parties, that's, as you said, 21 of them, including ones like the Communist Party, Electoral Reform Party, Party for People with Special Needs, they all of them put together make up a tiny fraction of the voter pool. In 2018, only 1% of votes cast were for the non-mainstream parties. So we'll have to see if that's higher this time around. Now, in ridings that might be very, very close, it might be possible that support for the New Blues or the Ontario Party might hurt the PCs, but so far, no indication yet. Katerina?
Thanks for this, Joanne. That is Joanne Chianello in Ottawa. CBC Windsor has launched Voters Corner, a chance to hear directly from you about what you care about the most. And we'll be featuring your voices in the days leading up to Election Day. I spoke with 2 young voters still figuring out who to vote for, with affordability top of mind.
Me personally, I live on my own, so that's pretty huge for me. Just seeing the increase from when I first moved to Windsor to now, or even where I was living last year to now, the increase in what I'm paying in rent, or my grocery bill is double what it was before, which is insane. I work in 2 jobs, I wasn't even making enough.
What jobs were you working?
At the time, I was working at Tim Hortons and I was doing data entry. Luckily, I work in a retirement home as a concierge now, so I'm making more money and working more hours. But it was really hard for the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, no kidding. And then on top of that, you got the idea of housing and the idea of one day owning a home. How does that feel?
I know for a fact right now I will never be able to own a home on my own, which is really sad.
I still live at home and I really want to move out, but I just can't even fathom, it's not like I don't make enough money to do it. It's just, if I did, I wouldn't be able to sustain it. So it's it's not worth it right now.
So is it fair right now to describe you as undecided voters?
At the moment, yeah.
Ish. I mean, I have a general idea of the parties that I typically vote for, but it's mostly just I normally would do Green Party, but I know that they don't really have a chance. So I will be voting something that has more of a chance to get out the current, that would be what I would do.
Yeah.
So you both plan on voting?
Absolutely, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And you can always contact us directly if you want to be featured on our Voters Corner. You can email us at windsor@cbc.ca. Let's turn now to the United States, where a community is grieving the victims of yet another mass shooting. A white teen is accused of driving more than 300 kilometers across New York State to Buffalo and fatally shooting 10 black people on Saturday. The 18-year-old suspect in custody has been charged with murder but has pleaded not guilty. And federal prosecutors are also contemplating hate crime charges. Stephen D'Souza reports.
My mother was an angel. My mother was, she was my mother. You know, you can't replace your mother.
The pain is still raw for Garnell Whitfield. His mother, Ruth, was the oldest victim in Saturday's shooting. She had just left a nearby nursing home, where for the last 8 years, she used to visit her ailing husband. He was the love of her life, but Whitfield says they haven't figured out how to tell his father she's gone.
We don't know what's in his best interest, how he will take this news.
Many here are focusing their anger on the suspect, who specifically targeted this neighborhood and its predominantly black residents.
That's evil. And for a kid that young that had that much evil in his heart, I really feel like, you know, we need to do better.
All 10 victims have been identified, including 72-year-old Kat Massey, who last year wrote to the local paper calling for action to address gun violence, and 67-year-old Hayward Patterson, a deacon who often shuttled people to and from the store to get their groceries. The store is at the heart of this community. The only grocery store in the area, it was a hub, which makes the shooting that much more devastating.
He studied that it was an important hub, but there's more like him. There's more like him across these United States of America.
Civil rights lawyer Ben Crump called for accountability for those online and on TV that promote the ideology that allegedly motivated the gunman.
What happened on Saturday was an act of domestic terrorism. And we have to define it as such.
Garnell and his family fought back tears to lead a call for change.
What are you willing to do so that the next time it's not you standing here before your broken-hearted family?
He took away my mother and my best friend. How dare you? How dare you?
Police today released a chilling new detail. Had the accused gunman not been caught on Saturday, he had plans to continue to other locations nearby. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Buffalo.
Ukrainian forces in the city of Kharkiv say they have pushed back Russian troops as far as the border with Russia. Video released by Ukraine's military appears to show its soldiers gathered near a blue and yellow boundary marker. With most of the fighting now in the eastern Donbass region, towns and cities there are seeing renewed shelling from Russian forces. In Mariupol, now mostly under Russian control, the Azovstal steel plant remains the enduring Ukrainian resistance. Ukraine says Russia has been constantly targeting the facility to flush out its soldiers. A handful of Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war are finding a temporary home here in Windsor. They include Daria Yepifanova. She fled Ukraine in early March with her mother Natalia and a 1-year-old baby, about 2 weeks after Russia first invaded. Yesterday, she joined others in the community at a picnic at Lansbury Park held for the refugees. That's where our Jacob Barker caught up with her.
Are there family members of yours still in the Ukraine?
My husband, he's a doctor, anesthesiologist. He helped people, как сказать, раненые от войны, как сказать.
Her husband is helping people to escape the place of war, and she's obviously here by herself, but her husband is staying there.
Я тоже доктор, я бежала с ребенком.
Doctor.
С ребенком бежала.
Yeah, she had to live with a little baby just to be safe.
10 families have arrived in the Windsor region so far. That's according to the local branches of the Ukrainian National Federation of Canada and the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Volunteers who are trying to help them settle in say language is one of the biggest barriers.
They're going into ESL programs. The school boards have been fantastic.
Yes.
The hub groups from the city have been fantastic trying to bring them in. They've managed to get the kids assimilated into the schools at their appropriate level. So they need that language skill before there's a lot of jobs that they can take.
Live look outside. We do have a chance of showers this evening, and Colette will be here right after the break with a closer look. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy is here now for a look at our weather forecast. And Colette, it looked like we may have had a chance of showers, but that might be shifting now.
Yeah, some of that active weather is kind of pushing out over the lake. So we'll take a look at the radar here, and you can see exactly how well that's illustrated there. I also just want to start off with our temperature progression through the day, because many parts of Ontario, including southwestern Ontario, just such a ride through the day. So this is midnight last night, high teens, mild, some humidity. Then take it towards 7 a.m. Temperature drops down to 12 degrees, so it was pretty warm. Still up to midnight last night, and then cooler. And then, you know, we're just kind of in the middle there at midday. But with some of that sunshine, once the rain kind of moved well off to the east, just jumping up into those 20s at the end of the day. It's not everywhere, and you can see the cooler temperature. In fact, right now in Chatham-Kent, where we're still seeing those readings a little on the cooler side, and the winds. See how they're nearly coming at each other here between what's going on with Chatham-Kent and off the lake, of course, and then through the Windsor area. And that's sort of some of that enhancement that we've seen with some of the thunderstorm activity that was just kind of rolling through. So very wild with some of the lightning strikes, but all of that is well to the southeast and over the lake now. There's just a few little tiny isolated showers left behind, but otherwise things really quieting down as we go through the overnight hours. That's the story here. Now, eastern Ontario, it's quieting down as well, but it's really taking some time. So some heavier rain through that area. Look at all those lightning strikes stateside and now moving with the active weather into Quebec as well. So the severe thunderstorm watches and warnings, those now kind of exiting Ontario. Our special weather statement for southwestern Ontario lifted, and we're seeing that action moving away. But we get some sunshine tomorrow, clouds to the east. We should stay into that sunshine for much of the day, becoming a little more variable into the later afternoon, especially Chatham-Kent and over towards London, Sarnia. Windsor should stay more in the sunshine. That is until we get to Wednesday, and then the next system that's going to sneak through is going to bring us some rainy conditions into Wednesday. Tonight, though, a little bit breezy still with those winds changing direction, up to 20 tomorrow, a nice day. Not a bad day Wednesday. We need some more rainfall through here, but a little cooler is all.
Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, a pilot project to grow more power in the region. That's right after the break. Stay with us.
home.
A pilot project hopes to find out if turbines in Chatham-Kent can power greenhouses in Windsor, Essex.
This represents a solution of sort of adapting things in a different way, taking advantage of the fact that we've got a lot of investments that are already made here, using them in a different way. And I think it increases, again, the flexibility of our system. And ultimately, we'll still rely on a lot of central generation, central transmission. But now we're looking at how can we be more flexible locally.
These turbines will be connected to the local power grid. The power will then flow to local greenhouses. And that's a shift from sending the power to Toronto, where it gets redistributed across the province. In theory, that would open up more capacity for power traveling from Toronto to Windsor, Essex through transmission lines. It also eliminates some power loss that happens during transmission. Kruger Energy and the Ontario Greenhouse Vegetable Growers are behind the project. The University of Windsor will be researching the results. Early estimates believe these turbines could power thousands of greenhouse acres, or the equivalent of 60,000 homes. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. And you're going to want to stick around, because coming up next, the 4 major Ontario party leaders will debate for the second and final time, and that is set to run until 8 tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.